Good morning. Good morning. I think we will actually start right now. Our speakers are ready. You're all here. May I introduce myself? My name is Martha Deacon. I come from Canada. Virtually everybody else involved in this program is totally South African, but this has been a dream of mine, and the South Africans have supported this dream to make it happen. And I'm going to be your MC over the next 3 days. I want to welcome everybody here. Every one of you is an expert in some field or other. We are going to start and hear from our distinguished speakers from the government in a few minutes. But I wanted to, first of all, welcome our business owners, which is what this whole 3 days is about. You guys are the heroes of your country, because you are the ones who have taken a risk and started a business against all odds often. I've started businesses. I know how hard it is, and it's without support, concerted support from all of the different sectors of society. We're not doing our part to help you succeed. So in the next 3 days, understand that everybody in this room has come together, some from a great distance, to support the development of your business. We're proud of you. You know, a lot of us are in fact very envious because you have the guts and the skills and the ideas to step out, not just take a job, but actually create jobs. So understand how happy we are to have you, and use everybody in this room as a resource over the next 3 days as we talk about your businesses. I thought I'd also start out by saying what an incredible country, I know you know this, but what an incredible country is South Africa, and how incredible your economy is. We're here today to talk about what we hope will become a great job creation engine, micro-franchising. But even before we talk about micro-franchising, let's talk about what's happened in South Africa in the last 15 or so years. In the Mail and Guardian last weekend, there was an article that said, South Africa's economy has grown in the last 15 years from $500 million to nearly 2.7 trillion. It's grown more than 5 times in the last 15 years. That's this country. Taxes collected by the government were at about 113 billion in 1995. In 2011, they're nearly 6 times that amount at 664 billion. That's South Africa. That's what you've achieved. Companies, or taxpayers, let's talk about taxpayers. They were 1.8 million in about 1995. They're now over 10 million. That's more than a 5-fold increase in people paying taxes. So that's how South Africa can support grants. Yes, the grants have gone from 2.9 million people to 13.1 million people, which is 4.5 times. But the percentage of money being spent on grants has really not changed. It's 15%, 15 years ago, it's 15.6% now. It's virtually the same. The number of bank accounts in the country has increased to 21 million. There are 14.2 million middle-class South Africans now. That is, and the definition of that is earning 200,000 rand or more a year for a household of 4. 80% of those households are black. So these are things just to pat yourselves on the back to start with, that this country is really going in the right direction, and I'm hoping that we can focus a lot of attention on the sector that you're coming from, which is the largest sector in the country. It's the bottom of the economic pyramid, which really is the most important part of the whole pyramid and will create the most jobs if we can help get it right. I think that this next 3 days, if we work together, can be a world-changing experience in terms of economics and how we do this stuff. Because you here have the best franchises, you have the best franchise abilities, you have terrific capital formation, you have a great stock exchange here in Johannesburg, you have the best infrastructure in roads, in hydro, in all kinds of ways, and you have laws in terms of BBBEE that ensure that companies spend on enterprise development and on corporate social investment and social economic development. And if we can show them what incredible opportunities there are for investment in small business, that's what we're hoping to do, so that people who are starting off small can really grow. And on that note, I am thrilled to invite Tumelo Chipfupa to the podium. Tumelo is joining us from the Department of Trade and Industry. He is the Director General of Enterprise, and we've had a chat, a brief enough chat. He's going to sort of expand on a few of those statistics, because it's really quite interesting what they are learning about small business at the Department of Trade and Industry, tiny businesses, micro businesses. So I will ask Tumelo to the podium, and after that we will welcome Sadie Luca, the Chief Director of Community Development, Department of Social Development. And before I even ask you up, Tumelo, I'd like to introduce Dr. Mike Harrington from University of Cape Town, Graduate School of Business. University of Cape Town is our partner in this endeavor, and Mike has been the leader in that effort. Mike created the Center for Entrepreneurship at the Graduate School of Business, and a couple of people here I know have gone through his classes, and he is the guru. He also is the executive director of the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, and you will hear more of the background from both Mike and myself in the next session. But this session, the opening ceremony, we're giving over to Tumelo Chipfupa and Sadie Luca, and Tumelo, I welcome you now. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks a lot, Martha. I would like to start by thanking the organizers of this event for inviting the Department of Trade and Industry to this occasion to make an input. We got this invite at the DTI and had an engagement with Martha and his team, and in fact there will be quite a number of officials attending this occasion. We were quite excited because the occasion today brings together quite a number of very important stakeholders who work in the small business arena. It brings together franchises, people from corporate, people from different parts of government, and also it brings us around what we believe in the department. It's one of the most important developmental challenges that we face as a country. As South Africans, I think we can be very proud of a lot of the things that we've achieved since 1994. In 1994, I think as a country, our leadership chose to choose the path of peace and the path of building an inclusive society for our country. And as a result of that, we've had many accomplishments. We have today a judiciary that is a constitution that is well admired all over the world. We have a judiciary that is also quite respected. Every 5 years, we hold democratic elections in which we all have a say in who's going to lead our country. Last year, we hosted the World Cup, and it was a beautiful moment for our country. It showcased South Africa, and it showcased our achievement that we've had over the past 5 years. Martha has just been talking about some of those achievements. But in spite of all the achievements that we've had, we still face quite a lot of challenges in our country. And top of the list of challenges that we face is the issue of unemployment. We have still not yet in South Africa, I believe, built a society that includes all of our people in its economic life. That is, quite a lot of the people of South Africa are still excluded from participating meaningfully in the economy. And one of the biggest indicators of that is the unemployment that we have in South Africa. And not only the unemployment, but also the fact that a lot of our people have actually given up on even looking for jobs. You know, when official unemployment statistics come out in South Africa, there's those people who are classified as unemployed, which is normally around 25 or 26%. And then there are other people that are classified as discouraged job seekers, which is almost half of that. So you're talking about close to about 40% of South Africans who would love to work, who would love to earn an income, and who do not earn an income. I think all of us know of somebody, either a brother, a friend, a relative, a cousin who finished high school, has been looking for a job ever since, and now they are young men and young women, and they still haven't had an opportunity to earn an income. Last year, in the department, we did a survey with the World Bank. We released the study of a survey that we had done of small enterprises or of business. We actually looked at a range of businesses, starting with micro enterprises and looking up to some of the very large businesses that are listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And one of the things that we learned, we learned quite a lot from the study. Some of the things that we learned were things that we already knew. For instance, we found out that when compared to other countries, very few people in South Africa are participating in the labor markets, that we've got some of the highest unemployment of young people in South Africa. But we also learned quite a lot of things that we hadn't known before. And some of the things that we learned was that our small businesses, which normally in other countries is the major engine for the creation of jobs, are not developing and not as growing as they should be. For instance, what we found out was that of the businesses that exist in South Africa, of businesses that employ between 5 and 50 people, close to 70% of them, that is 7 out of every 10 businesses, started out as a micro enterprise. We also found out that 3 out of every 10 businesses that employ between 50 and 100 people started as a micro enterprise. We also learned that 3 out of every business that employs more than 100 people, 3 out of 10 businesses that employs more than 100 people started as a micro enterprise. But what we also found out was that not enough of those micro enterprises were formalizing and beginning to become small businesses that employ more than 2 or 3 people. And some of the challenges that small enterprises or micro enterprises have was that they sometimes lack knowledge of how to register. They do not have knowledge of where to go and register. They lack premises from where they can conduct their businesses. They have problems around our public transport and so forth. And we found out that, if micro enterprises are formalized and they are operating as formal businesses, then they begin to have opportunities. For instance, we found out that of those micro enterprises that were formalized, a lot of them were able to get bank accounts, they were able to get some form of credit, not all of them, but some of them, at least more of the micro enterprises that were formalized were able to get credit than those ones that were not formalized. More of the micro enterprises that were formalized were able to get access to government grants and other business support services. Hence, for us at the DTI, we decided that this conference or this workshop that is going to be held over 3 days, it's quite important because it speaks directly to that challenge that was identified in that study. It speaks to the challenge of how do we get more of our micro enterprises to begin to formalize and to begin to grow. So we are quite excited that over the next 3 days, we will be sitting with enterprises, we'll be sitting with experts, we'll be sitting with people from the corporate sector to find out how do we overcome that challenge and begin to have micro enterprises that graduate to small businesses and create jobs for South Africans. And I need to say that it is not because of lack of trying that small business has not been growing in South Africa. We've done quite a number of things since 1994. For instance, I think one of the first things that the government of President Mandela did in 1996 was to have a major gathering of small business. I think they called it the National Small Business Conference. And it is out of that conference that we created institutions like Kula, we created institutions like Ntsika that were supposed to help small businesses to grow. And in addition to some of the efforts of government, Martha has mentioned, we've got the BBBEE triple BEE, which also, amongst other things, encourages corporates to assist small businesses. But I think we all know that all our efforts have not had the kind of results that we would have liked to see. That is, we've not, in spite of all of these things, we've not seen small businesses growing as they should be growing. And personally, I do not think that it's because we've got the wrong people working in those areas or people who are supposed to help small businesses. I think it's because it is difficult to grow small businesses. It is a very difficult task. It's a very challenging task. And like quite a lot of useful things in life that are worth having, you need to keep working at it. You know, if this doesn't work, you need to try something else. Somebody describes those kind of people, you know, if you keep on doing the same thing but hoping each time that you'd get a different result, then, you know, it says something about the state of the wiring upstairs, that somehow that's the definition of senility, you know, you keep on doing the same thing. So we are excited with this conference because it introduces a new concept to our country. It introduces the concept of micro-franchising. And we are hoping that in the next 3 days, we will be able to listen to the experts, listen to the professors, listen to the different panelists that come from other countries who come and talk to us about how to get a different approach, and that we from the DTI will be able to learn, and especially learn from the small businesses themselves who are here about what are their challenges and how can we in government, how can we be able to assist them much more better than we've done before. It's for that reason that, you know, there will be quite a large delegation from the DTI. In fact, my colleague there, Mujalifa Mohoto, who's the Chief Director for Small Business Development, is also here, and I'm glad that he has come. He's the person who really gives direction in the DTI around small business. I told Martha that I was going to take the opportunity, though, to market 2 of our programs in the Department of Trade and Industry that I work with. It's a wonderful marketing opportunity for me because I think all the stakeholders are here, people from the financial sector, people who work with small businesses, and there are small businesses themselves. I wanted to also take the opportunity to talk about just 2 programs. One of the programs is the Black Business Supplier Development Program. It's a grant program that we introduced in 2001. And what we do in the Black Business Supplier Development Program, BBSDP for short, is that we assist small enterprises with cost-sharing grants to do quite a number of things. First of all, the aim of the program is to help small enterprises to grow and to help them secure contracts from corporates, from parastatals, and from government. So the grant that we provide, or the grants that we provide, firstly are for assisting small enterprises to get access to marketing experts, to get access to training, get access to outside knowledge. And since 2001, I think we've helped more than 400 small enterprises, and we've spent close to about more than 4,000 small enterprises, micro enterprises, and we spent close to about 300 or 400 million. The director of the BBSDP will be here this afternoon, and I think he can talk more about it than myself. And then one of the other programs that we've recently launched and that is beginning to make an impact in the country is the Cooperative Incentive Scheme. My understanding is that today there will be a speaker from Walk-in 25, which is one of the cooperatives that we sponsored under our Cooperative Incentive Scheme. And what we do in the CIS, or the Cooperative Incentive Scheme, we provide grants for equipment and for working capital to small cooperatives that are startup and that are emerging cooperatives. I was telling Martha that I hope that next year when we organize a conference of this nature, we'll be able to liaise much more better with the DTI than we did this time, so that we can also make sure that the people who market those programs are here, and people can not only hear me talking about them, but can begin to access them and talk to the people that are managing those programs. In closing, I would really like to thank Martha for inviting me. I would also like to thank Sebastian and Jayshree. They came to the DTI, and I think over the past 2 months in interaction with them in preparing for this workshop, I've seen quite a lot of enthusiasm from them about, small business, about micro enterprises, and it's really just transferred to the department, and hence we are all quite excited to be here, and we are hoping that at the end of this conference we will be able to work with them on this concept of micro-franchising. I thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tumelo, and I really look forward to next year to having the people who run these programs with us. That's wonderful. And Sadie, if I may invite you to the podium. Thank you.
Molweni, Absheni, good morning, Goeiemorgen. Tumelo is a businessman, straight to the point. I'm a community development guru, and I never go straight into the point. And I hope that will not disadvantage me, and that 15 minutes will not be taken from what I want to do. Because we're going to talk about assets, ne? And we've got an asset that actually brings us together as Africans, which assists us to become more cohesive than we are. And before I start saying what I have to say, for me to feel welcomed, and for me to, to get to see life, so we must do something. And I want us to sing a song. This song says, and because I'm in the Western Cape and we speak isiXhosa, I'm not quite sure whether it is isiXhosa or isiZulu, because for me, I can't see the difference. I speak, I don't even know whether it's Zulu or Xhosa. But the song says, Ibuyile Africa, ngegazi la maqhawe. And it says, zonke inhlanga zimanyene, or ngegazi la maqhawe. And zonke isizwe zohlangana ngegazi la maqhawe. And then I want, we can sing without instruments, and we know we make very good melody. And I want us to do that. I'm going to lead, because maybe you don't know the tune, but it goes like, Ibuyile, Ibuyile, I-Africa, ngegazi la maqhawe. But ayabuya, if you are seated down, it means ayibuyanga. Ngegazi la maqhawe, zonke inhlanga zohlanga zimanyene ne? Gazi la maqhawe, zonke inhlanga zimanyene ngegazi la maqhawe, zonke izizwe zohlangana ngegazi la maqhawe. Ibuyile, I-Africa, ngegazi la maqhawe. Zonke izizwe zihlangene ngegazi la maqhawe. Now I feel welcomed. now I can feel we are community. You know, as we are seated here, there's no DG, there's no chief director, there's no visitor, there's no Martha, there's no Sebastian. We are all the community of Khayelitsha in the Western Cape. Okay. Now, I'm going to start by saying that, you know, God's timing is always perfect. And at his own appointed time, things will begin to happen and they will gel together. And there's no perfect timing than this one. Taking from what Tumelo has said, you know, despite all the efforts that the government of South Africa has made to alleviate poverty, unemployment, and inequality, we see these three key challenges being on the rise. There's more inequality, there's more unemployment, there's more poverty. What is the problem? And you know, the school where I went to, which is the school of Mr. Todaro, taught me that I should always take a step back and ask myself three critical questions in the process of community development or development planning. The first question, what has been happening to poverty? What has been happening to unemployment? And what has been happening to inequalities? If these three are on the rise, then it means something is not right. And we must take a step back and review what we have been doing to begin to identify where the challenges or where, you know, things went wrong. Our government has recently declared a war against poverty, and there are 5 priorities that have been identified to try and begin to address these key challenges. There's one on decent work and sustainable livelihoods. The other one is health, education, and reduction of crime, as well as rural development. Now, we'll all agree that when you talk about development, whether it be urban or rural, all these other priorities are embodied in that, because you cannot achieve urban or rural development without a healthy community, without, you know, an educated community, without people being able to access decent work, without people being able to sustain their livelihoods. So all these other 4 priorities are embodied or embedded in the rural development one. And for me, it's both rural and urban development, because when you talk about community development, and specifically as the Department of Social Development, we've got to be present everywhere, and not only in rural or in urban, but in all communities. And there are also 12 government outcomes which have been outlined for government to use them as performance indicators to establish whether we are doing well and whether the programs that we have designed and implemented are making a difference. And amongst these 12, there's one very important one for us, which is about building vibrant, equitable, and sustainable communities. You know, the others are quality education, et cetera, but all those, for me still, they are embodied within this important outcome, which is outcome number 7. Now, prior to 1994, I'm sure you will agree with me that despite the challenges that we faced as a country, you know, during the apartheid era, the previously disadvantaged communities, people and households, were much more active and innovative than the communities prior or, you know, post-1994. I grew up in a rural area in the Northwest. My father was a farmer, and I went to school on a donkey cart designed by my father. And we had a cottage industry at home. And because we were farmers, we were using labor-intensive methods for harvesting. And when we got the harvesters, which were mostly coming from Botswana, my mother would ask my father to slaughter 2 pigs, and we would then, you know, salt the meat to extend the shelf life, but then we would also use the fat to make soap. And that soap was then sold to the harvesters. And for me, it's a cottage industry, and it's the beginning of enterprising. we would milk in the morning, separate the milk, take, before I went to school, we had the can of cream that was by the roadside, and the National Cooperative of Dairies, the truck would pass by and collect the cream. And at the end of the month, we would get a check. Sustainable livelihoods. We had an orchard, and I can make all different types of jams, from tomatoes to fig to peach. And I was at boarding school, and when we went to school, my mother would then mix the butter that we made from the cream from the farm and the tomato jam in the canned fruit, go to school. Livelihood sustained even at school. So what happened? What happened? Why are people now standing there with arms stretched to government and saying, give us everything? Give us this, give us that. And people have even forgotten that they themselves are an asset. So, and as a result, those communities prior to 1994, they would develop plans that are sustainable to be able to address the needs and the challenges that they faced. If they needed a school, they would know that we've got to do something before we approach the state to say we need a school, because they had to be able to separate between a need and a want. And there was that very strong element of Botho, Ubuntu. I am because we are. Motho ke motho ka batho, And that has over the years been eroded. And today, we are a community or a society that is so, that is lacking social capital, that is so not cohesive, if I should say. And if we are to build vibrant and powerful communities, then we've got to be able to say what happened. So if you compare the communities of today and the communities prior to 1994, you don't really need scientifically proven research to be able to arrive at a conclusion that there is social decay and there is economic paralysis in our communities. And that is why you see this increasing levels of poverty, because people don't really have stopped to see that potential in them, that self-help and healthy, competitive, and enterprising spirit that used to be there is gone. It has been eroded. People cannot think about what they can do to provide for their basic needs. They cannot even clean their surroundings. I mean, when you go to some of the townships and communities, you'll find heaps and heaps of dirt and everything. And for me, I grew up knowing that cleanliness is next to godliness. Now, if you pass a paper and you just take your rubbish bin and you throw it in front of your house, something is wrong. Something is wrong somewhere with our communities. What is the type of community that we have created? That is why I'm saying we really had to take a step back and say, what happened? Where have we gone wrong? Is it the policies and programs that were developed with good intentions to bridge the previous inequality gaps that came with the past government? And were we able in the process to monitor and assess the implementation of those programs, policies, and strategies to establish where and whether there were unintended consequences of these good intentions so that we can then go back to the drawing board. And as a Department of Social Development, this is a department that is known for dishing out grants. And people don't know anything better than the department that dishes out grants. But that is not the only pillar of this department. Maybe it's because, the grants are something that is, enticing, and people just think of the grants rather than anything else. But there's also the welfare pillar, and the community development pillar from where I am coming from. Now, the Department of Social Development has a community development mandate, which has been institutionalized through the White Paper for Social Welfare of 1997. However, the focus of the community development has been more on service delivery to meet the needs of the poor without any strong emphasis on empowering the very poor to rethink issues, to improve their networks and their overall capacity to mobilize existing skills and put innovative ideas into action. And on its own, I think we will agree that the service delivery approach reinforces dependency as it keeps the focus of communities and its members on deficiencies and thus deferring power to external deliverers of service, where people are simply waiting for government and other key stakeholders to come and deliver a service. And you are aware that the high rate of failure you are aware of the high rate of failure of most of the poverty relief projects as well as cooperatives. And why these projects and cooperatives are failing, it is because of the approach that has been adopted, where you are dangling a carrot of money and saying, here is money, organize yourselves so that you can be able to access the money. Now, the focus of people is not on, because their interest is not actually on the project, it's on the money. And once the money is finished, then we've got a development graveyard of so many projects. And if we had to put up tombstones, I don't know how many tombstones we'll be having. And this reactive and symptomatic approach that has been used to address poverty and unemployment is not the answer. And the answer is, making sure that people are aware of who they are, the assets they have, and what they have to do in order to be able to sustain their livelihoods. Providing poor households with food parcels does not answer the question because it is a reactive approach to a symptom, and it is not addressing the root cause. And sometimes, we'll be going around with trucks delivering, those goats and chicken, and when you turn your back, they slaughter and say, thank you very much, Father Christmas. You have come and we have had our meal, and then we will wait for you to come back again. Now, as I indicated earlier on, government has declared a war on poverty. But the big question is, how are we fighting this war? Is government fighting the war alone, using a service delivery approach? Or is government fighting this battle in partnership with the community to come up with solutions that will be located and located within the local area, driven by the community, where the community would be able to say, we are constrained in this area, we will need your support, and not simply just to go and say, this is what we want, even if it is not really what the department or what the communities want. I'm not saying the service delivery approach is wrong, because government has to take a step in order to meet some of these service delivery challenges. But what I'm saying is, alone, this approach is actually killing our people instead of helping them to be able to achieve what they can do. Now, in an attempt to address these limitations of the service delivery approach, the Department of Social Development has adopted the Sustainable Livelihoods approach. I want to say it has not been very easy to mainstream this approach in development planning, because you have to change not only the mindset of communities, you must start by changing the mindset of the very officials themselves. Because if your focus has been running after projects and then somebody says, change now, and this is how we've got to do things, go and talk to communities, go and get their, go and bring them on board, mobilize. Mobilization is not just getting people in a meeting and saying, and counting heads, and then saying, we have consulted 100 people. And yet those people are not empowered even to take decisions. They are simply there to be told what it is that we want to do for you and not with you. And people are already very smart. They know how to play the state. Because they say, here is a cash cow that we can milk. It has got 4, King Matsele, what is this? Teats or others or whatever. Yeah. And these are not, there's no collaboration, and we talk about collaboration and integration. But this cash cow, these teats, there's no collaboration. So you milk this one, and you milk that one, and you milk that one, and you say, yeah, you know, they think they're smart. We have milked them dry. But then the sustainable livelihoods approach is an approach that is people-centered, that creates that awareness in people that you have what it takes in you. It doesn't matter the situation, it doesn't matter where you're coming from, whether you are educated or not educated, whether you are a product of whatever, or whether your parents are drunk and all the time. But at the end of the day, when God created you, he had a purpose. And it is for you to begin to realize the purpose that he has created you for, and then you will I've got only 3 minutes, and I'm going to finish within 2 minutes. And I've already indicated again that, with this outcome approach, it is about saying, how do we then, if we are saying we want to build vibrant, sustainable, and equitable communities, what is it that we've got to do in order to ensure that there is pulse in the community, it is vibrant? There is that capacity of ensuring that, development benefits are shared and distributed equitably in the communities. There is strong leadership with a vision that is able to advocate for a sustainable community development approach. So we have adopted this catalytic community development approach of going out, and we are saying we are taking this department out to people, not to say to people, this is what the department can give you. But we are saying, so it is about mobilizing the communities, going there. We are using the methodology that is called the Community Capacity Enhancement Methodology, where you engage the community, start with the profiling, but then we say, what are the issues that are emerging? And the community should say, these are the issues. Then we engage in a dialogue and say, what is it that you have done? And what is it that you can do if you have not done anything? And where are you constrained? And what type of support do you need? There's a community where we went to in Dalesville in the Free State, where there is a salt pen. And people are sitting there, they are not even aware of this asset. Yes, it's a salt pen. The question should be, how can we then, utilize this asset for us to create employment and generate income? And then that is where the DTI can come in with the Department of Science and Technology to say, we can assist you with this technology, and then we can do this and that for you to be able to use this asset. But it starts first with you, because unless you are able to see, and what the gospel that we are preaching is, have big eyes to be able to see opportunities beyond, and have big ears and listen to what people are saying so that you can be able to identify opportunities, and have a small mouth. But these days, people have got big mouths, small eyes, and small ears. So we've got to change the situation around. And then lastly, just to indicate that in the process of engaging and enhancing the capacity of communities, because we believe that there is capacity there, it just needs to be enhanced. There is local knowledge, indigenous knowledge, which actually is a very good platform for sustainable community development. We are also starting a process of conducting community economic analysis, because communities are not even aware of the financial power that they have. They simply see this grant as 250, but if collectively they can see that 10,000 times 250 is a lot of money, but this money does not stay in the community. Immediately it gets in, it is out. How can we then as a community trap this money and make sure that it generates local economic development? And then I'm ending by saying that we are here to learn, we are here to share, to work together so that we can regenerate the positive power of communities as we strive towards building vibrant, equitable, and sustainable communities. And for communities to become powerful, allow the community to be powered by all. And lastly, but not least, when the world says to you, give up, let hope whisper, try it again once more. Thank you very much.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. A couple of housekeeping issues. Tumelo has asked me to, it's my error, and he's correcting. He's not a Director General, he's a Deputy Director General. We just promoted him. And I also understand that Mr. Donald Mabusela the director of the Cooperative Incentive Scheme, is with us. Is that correct? If you're here, would you please stand up so we can introduce you? This is Mr. Donald. I almost made you a doctor. My gosh, everybody's getting promoted today. Mr. Donald Mabusela, director of the Cooperative Incentive Scheme, and he's here with us today. All right. So, yes. Just 1 second, Andrew. The questions will come in a minute. Program, you'll see there's no official break for coffee this morning, but there is coffee available on the sides. There's water on the tables, so catch as catch can. We have a really packed program, and we will be starting, I think my watch may be a little fast. We will be starting at 11 o'clock after we take a couple of questions. We'll be starting on the next session, which hopefully will explain why we ended up getting the Department of Social Development and the Department of Trade and Industry together. It's not your average partnership, but how it all fits, because we want to explore this vision over the next 3 days about how one starts with a community, empowering a community, and gets straight through to a large micro-franchised or otherwise very large business that focuses at the bottom of the economic pyramid. There's a plan out there, and hopefully you'll help us. Your contribution will make it work. That's what we're here for. All right. So we have time for, I think, about 2 questions, and they will have to be short. And may I ask that you make a question, not a statement, and that you tell us who you are, first of all, in every question, who you are, where you come from, what your question is, and direct it. And maybe we have time for 2, but certainly roving microphone, I understand. We have a roving microphone. May I please have a volunteer to take that? Sebastian, could I ask you to get that microphone? All right. Andrew, you stood up and wanted to ask a question. Sebastian will bring you the microphone. And provided Andrew's question is a quick one, we might have time for another question. Is there somebody else who'd like to ask a question, and I'll get them lined up? Okay, Andrew, you have the floor.
We are... Sorry, turn it on.
Name?
Hello? Yes, thank you.
Introduce yourself.
We are not here to add...
Excuse me, would you please introduce yourself?
I beg your pardon. Andrew Pollock from Power Saver. As you go up the stairs on the right, renewable energy, specifically for township shack energy supply. We are not here to add to this graveyard that you mentioned, Sadie. As a collective, we here today represent a variety of businesses that have proved to be successful. We therefore sit on the cusp of creating micro-franchises in townships that will identify innovators, create jobs in manufacture, retail, and in distribution. How, we ask, can the DTI act as an enabling entity to make micro-franchising in townships succeed? Interestingly, quite a number of the businesses here that I hope that you'll visit today have as much application in rural as in urban areas. Hence, address some of the goals set by our government for this year. Thank you.
Is the question directed? Sorry.
Thanks for the question. I hope I tried to hint at, how we can be able to partner. Like I've already indicated, we've got quite a lot of programs within the department that work with small business. Firstly, we've got programs within CEDA that assist with training, and then within the department itself, we have also institutions that deal with small business finance. Sometimes maybe we don't have as good turnaround times as people would like to have. But also within the department, we've got incentive programs, and I tried to mention 2 programs. One is the cooperative incentive program, and one is the Black Business Supply Development Program that I spoke about. we are all learning, and this concept is new. So I think what we need to engage in is to try and look at our programs and see how do we adapt some of them to make sure that, you know, it can begin to address the need in this promising project of micro-franchising. Like all of us here, I think we are here to learn. We are here to learn more about micro-franchising, and hopefully when we go back, we will begin to think of ways of how we can begin to partner with small businesses around this concept of micro-franchising. I'm sorry I don't have, hopefully the answer that you wanted, but I think that's the best. Okay.
Thank you both. We have time for one more question.
Community, side B. And as no ba isixhosa yasevela mnumzana. All right. Into eyenzekayo u-DTI une-programs ezimbini, u-National Empowerment Fund kwakunye nokhula. Ndikhe ndaya apha ezofisini. Ndicimba into yobana le nto bayiveza kwikhompyutha nasemaphepheni ihamba ngokola hlobo. Ndifuna imali yoqhubekeka kwaye neshishini eli ndilenzayo. Problem is le mali endiyifunayo bathi maqale ndibeke u-10% oqinisekisa into yobana ndinayo imali apha kum epokothweni. Na ingxaki iibhizinesi zethu zincinci kakhulu, asibi namali esiyigcinayo, singena imigalelo. Ngoku uzayifumana njani le mali? Ufune uyoboleka le 10%, uphinde uboleke le mali ekukhulu, uzalibhatala njani ityala? Ndivile ke into yobana ingathi zikhona ke ezinye ii-initiatives onazo based kwinkokheli le lapha emva kwam. Ndingavuya into yobana mhlawumbi ungaba nazo amaphepha kungenjalo information onothi uyidistribute apha kuthi sihambe sinayo, because ungayithetha le nto uyithethayo kodwa xa siye ofisini ilanguage iyatshintsha. Enkosi.
I'll try and translate for the rest of the other people who maybe do not understand Xhosa. I'm not quite good at Xhosa myself, but I understand it quite well, and that question I understood. and the question really says, it was the fact that the DTI has got these two institutions. One of them is the National Empowerment Fund, and one of them is Kula Finance Facility, and both of them are advertised or they are introduced to the public as institutions that assist small businesses and provide small business loans. And what the gentleman over there was saying was that he went to Kula and he went to the NEF based on this promise that had been made by the DTI, and when he got there, he was asked to, out of his own funds, put out 10% in order to access the loan from these institutions. And now the question is, where his business is small, where does he get the 10%? Is he now supposed to go and borrow 10% and borrow 90% from the NEF, you know? And I think the appeal really is for the department to be more reasonable in how it approaches communities and how it approaches small businesses. Firstly, maybe in my response, I need to say that we are quite aware of the fact that, you know, resources are limited, even within government. And the people who manage Kula and who manage the NEF have also got the responsibility to make sure that they manage the resources that they have, and they manage them in such a way that they replenish those resources and they grow over time to assist more small businesses. In my own experience, most of the time, what happens with, I don't know about this particular case, but in my experience within the department, what we've experienced is that a lot of the time, entrepreneurs have got very good ideas and maybe they run very good businesses. But the problem with getting access to finance from the department or from the department's institutions, it's really being able to communicate in the manner in which you would want information to be communicated, because they would have to fill out forms, they would have to explain what their business is, and sometimes you'd find that people are running good businesses, like the case that I was saying. You find that, but the business is not properly formalized. You don't get, you cannot get a history of the potential of the business. Hence, I was saying that I'm quite excited that, part of what we are doing here is to begin to bridge that gap, to formalize small businesses so that people are able, keep books, are able to have records, and in that way, in communicating with departmental agencies, it makes it easier to approve those loans. I'm not saying this is what happened in this particular case. I do know that sometimes the needs are many, and sometimes what happens is that we sometimes fall short in terms of our capacity to assist everybody who comes to us. But I've taken the criticism on board, and I will try and communicate it. And fortunately, my colleagues from the DTI are here, and they're also listening, and they can hear what is being said. Thanks. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Tumelo. And hopefully, too, in the next couple of days, we'll talk about the equity side of where every business needs equity. Every business needs ownership. It can't all be done on a loan. How do we get that? How do we get that piece to get started? It's not, we know it's not going to be 100% government. It's just not going to happen. We have to start ourselves. And this is a good lead in to the next session. You can stand up, turn around, in about 2 minutes, sit down again. But the next session, we will meet all the business owners that are here today. And we will be asking you about your expectations. I know you're ready to tell us about your businesses and your expectations. Mike and I will say a few words about the philosophy behind this, how this whole thing came about, and what we're trying to achieve in the next 3 days. And then you're going to talk about what you expect in the next 3 days. So I'm ending this now. Off with the microphone. Please stand up for a few minutes, and then I'm going to call you back quickly. Thanks. By the way, the public washrooms, toilets are either side.